Have you ever wished that your design income would be a lot more predictable and that maybe you would have long-term relationship with your clients where you can work with the same people for a long time instead of just one-off projects? Well, if you felt that way, I think retainers are a great way to enhance your business and make your overall experience as a creative much better. And I've been using retainers for my business for about 7 years now. So I thought I would share what has worked for me, different types of retainers, and what to think about to make sure you're not getting stuck in any confusing or frustrating situations. So how do you actually start getting retainer clients? In my experience, the best way to start setting up retainer clients is to do it with clients you've already worked with. So once one project's done, for me, it's often branding. So we've done a branding project in the past. They have their brand, it's finished, they're excited, but they might need a bunch of other design help, like doing social media banners or let's say doing newsletter designs. So in that case, I know that there are lots of things I can help with, but instead of waiting for them to come to me hoping that they will need something else, I can offer them a retainer. So this way your client knows your process, you know how they are to work with, and it's much smoother this way. Of course, if you want, you can also go and just offer retainers as a first for your clients, especially if you notice that they're coming to you with smaller things and they are anticipating, let's say, oh, we're going to have a lot more work in the future. Then a retainer is a great way to set that up. So how do we structure design retainers? I think that there are 2 different kinds, and these are very broad, but of course there might be more, so you can let me know if you've seen any. The first one is basically a bank of hours. And so this is where you're offering your clients some options between, let's say, 10, 20, and 40 hours a month, where they have your skills and your work available. And so this is perfect if you have clients that don't really have like a consistent type of work that they need help with. I work a lot with brands that might need social media assets one month and a print ad next month, and these types of different things that they might need help with. They don't have an in-house team, but they want someone on hand that can jump on it and help them when something comes up. I found this is really good for startups because they're so fast-paced and they have lots of things going on. One month they might have a pitch deck that they need a bit of tweaking on, and the next month they might need to be part of a contest or something where they need an ad. So I think this is a really good thing if you're working with startups. The benefit of this setup is that you're basically getting paid exactly for the time that you put in, which is a really, really nice setup to me. Especially, like we said, if you've had experience of scope creep and these things where clients are asking for lots of little things and you're not really getting paid. So the best way to set this up is to offer some different options and then to have a way for you to track your hours, and you can report them back every month what those different hours have gone to. So I like to use Toggle Track for this, and I basically just create the client and the project. Let's say I just put the project as the month, so saying, let's say August 2022, and then I just start the clock as soon as I start working on the project. And each month I can then report back to them exactly the breakdown of the hours. This will give your client a really great experience and they can really see where the time has gone. One common problem that a lot of people ask me about when it comes to hourly is that, okay, but how do I know, like if a client is asking for something that takes longer than the hours that they have available, or what if they ask for something that is typically something I charge more value-based for? So I stipulate in my terms that I wouldn't, let's say, do a logo design on an hourly retainer, because that's a value-based type item that I need a lot more type of research and background stuff rather than just the design phase. So I think that this is perfect if you have a client that you already know they have a stable brand, they have a stable type of business, and they need to do services that you can quickly bang out in a few hours, like creating a social media post, a newsletter, or let's say a print ad. I like to give my clients a little bit of a quote. So if they write in and say, hey, we would like help with designing a brochure, I could say, perfect, that fits into your budget. We have about 6 hours left, and I think this would take 3.5, for example. And then it might be, give or take a little bit, but just to kind of give them a ballpark can be helpful sometimes. Next up is to structure your retainers based on deliveries. So this is perfect if, let's say, you're doing website hosting and maintenance. That's like the same service every month that you're offering. It could also be, let's say, how many social media posts you're creating, or maybe there's something else that they need every month, like a newsletter, for example. So the benefit of this is it's super clear, you know exactly what you need to do, it's easy for you to plan, nothing is gonna go over or, you know, be hours left in the month. And so this is something that is really easy for both you and the client to wrap your head around, I think. The negative can be that if a specific month is a lot more complex, let's say there's lots of updates on the website that need to happen, maybe there was like a new thing that you need to do with the payment setup or something like that, those months can take you a little bit more time, but the hope is that over time it will even out. So some months will be a little bit less work and some months will be a little bit more. Of course, you'll have to keep track of how much you're working and then make sure that you're kind of adjusting the prices as you go to make sure it's actually working for you. So next I want to mention a few things that I think you can do to really get the most out of using your retainers. The first one is pricing. So I think it's a good idea to put your rates just a little bit lower than your typical rates for project-based pricing or value-based pricing, because the benefit of a retainer is that you have that consistency, that reliability. So you're basically treating like the prices per hour is a little lower, but you have like that security of it being month by month. Just to give you a quick overview, because I really like transparency around pricing, I started designing in the UK. When I first started, I think my retainer was at something like $30 an hour, which to me, of course, looking back, it's pretty low, but at that time I had really low experience and I was just learning. As I was working for a few years in the UK, it went up to something like 55, 60 an hour. And then I moved country to Sweden, where we have much higher taxes and a lot more costs. So here people actually charge a lot more, like 100 to 130 pounds an hour. And so my retainers then show and reflect that, of course. And maybe you guys want a video on how, you know, the price for different markets. I think that'd be super interesting. So let me know if you want that. But I tend to offer like a little bit of a discount the more of a bigger price package you choose. So let's say you pick 10 hours, that might be really close to my normal hourly rate. But if you're picking, let's say 20 or 40 hours, I might give 5% discount compared to option 1 or 10% discount compared to option 1. So this is like an incentive for your client to say, actually, you know, it would be nice to have a bit more flexibility and a bit more room in our budget. So we just pick the bigger option or the bigger package so that they have more design hours and get a little bit more of a discount. My next tip is to have a minimum commitment time. And so rather than just signing up and having 1 month and then dropping off, I think it's really good to have either a 3 or a 6 month commitment. So basically they're signing up to work with you for at least 3 to 6 months. And as they are continuing after that period, you can choose if you want to have them be able to cancel 1 month in advance, or if you want to make it, let's say, 3 months in advance. And this is something you can also feel out and experiment with what works best for your clients and your business. But I think it's good to dare to put your foot down and actually have a little bit of those conditions in there. It will make it much easier for you to plan your income and your time because you know that work is coming up. This one's a biggie, and I learned this one the hard way, and that is you need to set terms for how much warning you need before a deadline. So let's say your client is asking you on a kind of ad hoc basis. They have 20 hours in a month that you're going to help them, and they send you a social media post that they need, and they need it in a day. Well, maybe you have lots of other client work and maybe you have meetings, and so you don't want to have this retainer, or especially if you have multiple retainers, to be something that is going to rule your life. So I put in my terms and conditions for the retainers that they need to give me at least 3 to 5 days of warning for a deadline, or if it's something that is more extensive, that's going to take up at least 80% of the budget, I need a week in advance. And so this is something you can test out again and see what works for you. But I think it's good to have that and set that as an expectation. The next tip is to set up terms and conditions for what happens to unused hours. So let's say you have 40 hours in a month and they only use 35. Do those hours just disappear? That is one option. Or do they roll over to the next month? In that case, for how long does that work? Because you don't want to end up with like 200 hours in a month where you're going to try to squeeze all of that work in that your client is suddenly asking for. So what I've been doing is I say that the hours do roll over because I don't want them to feel stressed, but only for 3 months. So if those, let's say 5 hours haven't been used in those next 3 months, those hours are essentially gone. So I think this gives clients a way to plan and to batch up their hours, but at the same time, it doesn't give me a big surprise at the end. If you thought this was helpful, maybe you really enjoyed my video on how to turn your design business around in 6 months, I'll put that on the screen so you can have a look. I really hope this was helpful, and I would love to hear your experience with retainers. I know people have very different experiences. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your projects.